Bon, ça va un peu à l'encontre de l'idée de dire le truc par défaut, ça va être de le faire par la priorité des scopes, parce qu'en fait, la plupart des scopes ne vont pas être dans ce cas-là. Mais ça donne un peu plus de flexibilité aux gens de VST pour faire des listes qui s'impriment de 3 manières différentes. Bon, ils ont déjà cette possibilité à cause des notations sans non délimitées, mais ça sera un petit peu mieux.
Voilà.
C'est moi, mais ça s'entend bien.
Non, vas-y, je suis très bien.
Je suis très bien. On va pas dire, c'est pas. Non, il n'y avait pas plus de place que ça pour la table. Donc,
Ah oui, on est censé mettre 12 personnes autour de cette table.
ouais.
On n'a pas dit lesquelles. Oui, on peut se
serrer un peu plus, c'est ça qui
serrer
va
un
bien.
peu plus là.
Hop. Ah oui, 26. Oui, alors, ça va en tient. Bon. On attend Mathieu et Yves. Ok.
Oui. Qu'est-ce que c'est que ça?
C'est bien passé ce matin?
Oui, on a ajouté des petites notes encore sur les wikis. Oui, ça c'était à quelques questions. Je pense, peut-être à remarquer la discussion des pull requests. C'est clair que des pull requests issues, c'est clair qu'il faut discuter plus comme how to reduce the number of open issues or how to approach the bugs. So it's clear we need more discussion. So this is also there was this Mathieu will put the slides on the proof API. There is also more discussion needed in other version. What more? The code packages and also this development team communication, like having a list of the members, everything. So.
You already discussed a lot?
Yeah, we had 5 topics, and we did Theo. Now the next one is Theo Discourse. So the moment people is here. Yes, there are also notes. So maybe we'll take the notes from this one. But it.
On avait 40 et 48.
Tu savais que les équipes, ça peut faire qu'on te demande une review sur ta propre projet?
Oui, on en a parlé au moment où on a commencé à faire ça. On s'est dit que c'était chiant, que ça allait nous empêcher de l'utiliser, mais finalement, on s'est dit que c'était quand même suffisamment.
Tu peux approuver? Tu peux approuver?
Non, tu peux pas approuver. Tu peux pas.
Tu peux laisser des commentaires. Ça, c'est
Ah,
une culture.
oui,
moi, je ne peux pas me demander de modifier des choses pour ne pas oublier.
Mais j'ai envoyé un mail à GitHub à propos de ça. Hein. Ils m'ont dit on le fera peut-être quand. Merci pour votre feedback, on le fera peut-être quand on trouvera. Enfin, quand on le fera.
Tu ne peux pas demander un chèque.
Un quoi?
Un chèque.
Ah non, ils ne fonctionnent pas comme ça. Mais nous, on devrait fonctionner comme ça. Les bugs qui sont difficiles à corriger, on dit donnez-nous un chèque et on corrigera.
Pourquoi les bugs qui sont difficiles?
Parce que ceux qui sont faciles, on leur dit c'est facile à corriger, regardez, il faut faire comme ça, faites-le. C'est notre manière de fonctionner.
Bon, je vais me donner des bouches.
Il faut le justifier un tout petit peu.
Non, j'ai encore craqué quelque part.
Pourtant,
elle est tenace celle-là.
Pourtant, elle avait pas l'air.
Un peu de diffusion.
Au bout d'une semaine de boulot, je me dis, mais lundi, j'ai commencé par un truc, je pensais que ça prendrait 10 minutes.
Let's go. Hein?
Ouais, on manque.
Georges.
Ouais, manque qui
Georges et Thierry. Et on va peut-être pas attendre jusqu'à 14h.
Ouais, ok, ouais, je pense que c'est.
À 15h, je veux dire.
C'est 15h. Ouais, ça va. Ok, we have a room, so we can. Don't worry. Okay, so well, let's go.
So, the discourse, to summarize quickly, the discourse forum. Discourse is a software for a modern software for forums. It is used in more and more for more and more programming languages community, including OCaml. Armael asked at the last implementers workshop if we were okay to add such an instance. So I mentioned it in the first working group of the academic year. Then since then, Discourse has added support for has added like a free. They provide a free hosting for open source up to certain usage limits. So I've applied to that, and the instance has been created in the beginning of January, but I've been busy, so I've not acted upon it so far. But so the question I want to talk about today are about the launch strategy. So first, last time at the last working group, I think we said some words about what the purpose of this discourse forum would be, and to summarize, we would keep Code Club for people who prefer to use mailing lists, but every topic on Code Club would be welcome on Discourse, and we would aim to replace completely the CogDev mailing list by a category or several categories on the Discourse forum. In particular, plugin development, which has never been very clear if it was for Code Club or for CogDev, would be obviously would have its own categories there, and code development as well. So one thing that must be decided before launching this discourse is what is the division in categories. So I've been looking at the examples that I know the most, which are OCaml, Nix, and Elm. So OCaml has the following categories: learning, community, ecosystem, site feedback, uncategorized. NixOS has learn, development, announcements, events, how-to, links, meta, inbox, and uncategorized. And Elm has only 3: learn, request feedback, and show and tell.
And what?
Show and tell. So I can explain what this means. But personally, my first comment is that I think that OCaml and Nix have too much, and it's not very clear what these categories are for, and this is probably bad. The Elm division with request feedback and show and tell is basically show and tell is like announcement, but you don't especially want feedback.
Okay.
Like I announce that I've made this package, and request feedback is request feedback is anything where you want feedback. So this can be, I have made this package, but I'm not quite sure about the API. It would be that. So I wrote first, I have something to propose for the categories of of Code's discourse, and then we can discuss if you have better ideas. But for now, I put learn, plugin development, code development, announcements, and discuss. And the idea was that we don't need to distinguish between like package releases, meetups, call for papers, everything can go to announcements. And discuss can include everything that is not relevant for the other categories, like not really a question about how to do that in Coq, but more a question about how the community organized, or posting a link like on Reddit to have it commented, anything. So I don't know what do you think about these categories? Are there better proposals or something to add or to remove?
Can you repeat them?
So learn,
Yeah.
plugin development, code development, announcements, and discuss.
Yeah, they're in the wiki. I put it on the wiki,
Yeah.
so in case you want to. I just commit the.
So we can add descriptions to them, but I think it's important that the name is meaningful already.
So learn would be like the Coq beginners.
Like maybe not necessarily code beginners only, but anything that you don't know and you want to ask some people that know better.
So
What is discussed?
Discuss would be anything that is not really another in the other category. So for instance, discuss community organization, package management, anything. I don't know, like post a link to an article that was published somewhere on the web to discuss it.
That would be announced.
Yeah, that would be enough.
Well, okay, maybe we don't need to distinguish the two, but announcements seems to be more about
Package releases and something like that.
one direction of communication, but we could merge.
So you typically don't know if people are going to reply.
Yeah, but for instance, if let's find some things that really don't
Because
fit.
right now, a priori, learn will be most of Coq Club today, right?
Yeah, but
I have a
except,
question about that. What about the discussion about an external library? Question about
yeah, something like that.
recently there was some questions about Coq and Coq interval, for example. Would you
That could be
use them
discussed.
under learn?
Or in
Or
code
something.
development.
No, not Coq development.
So it's not clear. So that's
Or
why.
then I don't know what Coq development
Yeah,
is.
so this is the point. If there is no generic, if there is no general category like discuss, then the people are going to wonder: is it learn? Is it code development? Is it something else?
But then they will wonder, is it discussed? I mean,
Well, if we put discuss everything that doesn't fit anywhere
then
else,
call it other.
other
I don't know.
other would be
But-
clearer.
I don't know if it's a good idea, but if it is the rule
The
in
default
terms,
one, yeah.
then
Because we want to welcome any kind of discussion, and we don't want people to feel like some
Like they have to
discussions
fit
are
in
not.
That said, I'm fine with
General
discuss.
discussion,
Sorry,
general discussion.
general discussion would be
Yeah,
clearer.
yeah.
And then if we put general discussion, let's say general discussion, maybe learn being the only verb is not very.
Okay, maybe it's learning, I think.
Yeah, I think that's what I said. Learning, so it could be learning for.
Learning, plugin development, code development, announcement, general discussion.
So that seems good.
Mhm.
So regarding the actual.
Okay.
I don't understand.
it's still a verb.
What is the difference between plugin development and Coq development?
Well, when you are a plugin writer, you don't necessarily want to know everything about what is going on inside Coq. You just want to have advice on how to write your plugin.
It's a good point. I agree with you.
There was an ambiguity in what you said, and I thought code development were people who were writing libraries in code, but without using a new kernel.
Okay, so that's bad.
Yeah, so yeah,
So
that's the way-
should be
that's the
code
way
dev,
I
right?
understood what you
I mean,
were
in
saying.
your vision, it would be code dev.
yeah, so it's code development plus maybe plugin development would be code dev. But okay, maybe we need to say something, another title that code development, if code development is not clear about what it means.
Kernel development.
Kernel is can be too specific, but
Yeah.
core development. We were just talking about discourse.
But I think I would prefer code development and the description that clarifies. It's not misleading.
So code development, parenthesis,
Not parentheses.
okay.
There is
Or
a
in the description, be specific in the description. Okay.
But it seems to me that give is a good point that there is not so much difference between developing a plugin and code.
Yeah, it's clean.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
there's
there
a
is.
difference. For instance, I'm in the same team as Chantal Keller, and she doesn't care at all about code
The
dev.
internet.
But
yeah.
she needs to know how to port SMT code to new version of
Yeah,
code, and
things like
she
that.
doesn't want to know. She wants to know nothing else about.
Exactly, and I think
Yeah.
many people are in our case, and some.
Somehow, I mean.
I think there is a point in distinguishing two categories if there is enough traffic.
Yeah.
Code dev is essentially 3 messages per week.
No, but okay, maybe I'm wrong, but my expectation is that there will be more traffic on this code development category that there is on code dev, because currently my impression is that we don't use code dev so much because this is a mailing list, and we have learned to prefer other ways of communicating.
You
And-
don't speak for me.
Sorry?
It's not my case.
It's not your case, okay? But my impression is that there would be maybe some of the discussions that currently happen in the bug tracker would move there,
Pull requests.
like meta discussion
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
No, maybe post,
Could be a good thing to
or
highlight, like,
advertisement of the CEPs, or I don't know.
Yeah.
We can still refine these categories later if
Yeah.
we feel that okay, there is not enough traffic there, we can merge 2 of them. Or but so Armel, we were talking about the categories for the discourse forum, and so the current proposal is learning, plugin development, code development, announcements, and general discussion.
And you want to use code development between code developers as a communication medium?
Yeah.
I think
And replace code dev.
Okay. Yeah, I think it makes sense to me. At least.
So,
On the Ocaml one, I don't think there are many categories. I mean,
Yeah, there are many.
learning. And
I can tell you there is learning, community, ecosystem, site feedback, and uncategorized.
Okay.
But personally, I'm not very fond of these categories because community and ecosystem are not so clearly distinguished.
Wait, so you had learning and plugin development and
Code development
Okay.
and announcement and general discussion.
And so, I mean, if I have a general, I don't know, question that would be learning, then there is no non-learning, non-plugin category.
There is general discussion.
Or general, okay.
it's a different one.
Yeah. So, for instance, if you want to discuss about the package, I think this would be there in the general discussion channel.
Yeah.
Okay. So then the launch strategy. So Discourse recommends making sure that you have enough activity at the beginning. And my idea, but you may have better ones, is to announce on Coq Club the new discourse forum and encourage people there to start creating content before putting any link on any web page or anywhere, so that newcomers only see the discourse forum when there is already some stuff on it. Afterwards, we would advertise it in the README on the website. In the README, we could add a badge for discourse like we have for Gitter, and we could also put it in at the same level or even before Coq Club, but close enough. And there is also the question at the same time of what the related question of Stack Overflow, which is another platform where we can ask questions. And I know that, for instance, Benjamin Pierce was recommended several times that Stack Overflow could be a better alternative to Coq Club for asking questions, and I agree with him. But then the question is discourse making this obsolete, or do we want to still put Stack Overflow forward as well for asking questions? So just maybe you are not all experimented with asking questions on Stack Overflow, more experimented with reading them. But the main problem of Stack Overflow is that people there are not necessarily super friendly, especially when you ask a question that has already been asked before, or if your question is not well formulated, and thus the discourse forum has the advantage as a mailing list of being more open to any kind of
moderated bias.
Yeah. So, but this doesn't mean that Stack Overflow is a bad idea on the other hand, because it creates good documentation for future reference.
Yeah. How does it work in the document community? You also have Stack Overflow?
I mean, a few people use it, I think, both on the question and the answer side, but it's not the main channel for like documenting stuff, I think.
Yeah. And discourses?
Yeah,
It's
nowadays
it's usually that.
Yeah.
So
what happens on the camel list anymore?
It's still there, but a fewer people use it, I think. Probably just a byproduct of Discourse being there and people using it.
What about the development side?
There is a private mailing list.
But it's still active?
It's still used, I think. I mean,
Yes, it's still active. So it's not interacting with Discourse.
but as far as I can tell, it's more for like technical administrative stuff.
Nobody, yeah. cares about it.
But
Where
anyways,
with a technical discussion takes place? Is there something?
I would say some of it is on the closed development list. Some of it is on GitHub. I think most of it is on GitHub, but maybe the more high-level point are.
so anyways, we don't want to imitate that part of OpenNet.
Yes, I agree. Coq is clearly doing better on that front. One other example is Rust, where they have a kind of user forum on Discourse, and they have a Rust internals forum also on Discourse.
Yeah.
On the technical stuff.
But I think Vincent.
Well, yeah, there are many different communication mediums. So
That's what they wanted to use it, but now they decided they want.
Because they had too many people finding their ways there for bad reasons.
It's not clear that it's a problem that Coq would have to the scale of
Rust,
but you never know.
But we don't want this kind of separation anyway. I think we are really in a different spirits.
Yeah.
So So the point of speaking of Stack Overflow at the same time is that I think that we can choose to advertise Stack Overflow now. But if we don't choose to advertise Stack Overflow now, it might feel a bit weird to advertise it later after having launched Discourse. I don't know what you think, but I mean, at that point we could say, well, there is also Stack Overflow, by the way, and you are also encouraged to post questions that are relevant there. Whereas if we say that later, it could be, well, we tested Discourse, it didn't work, whereas this is not what.
I mean, Stack Overflow is already populated with code.
Yeah, it's already, but we could say.
So it's a valuable resource anyway.
We could say we acknowledge that it exists also and it's valuable, and you are also welcome to go there to ask and answer questions. And we could put it forward as well on the README and the web page.
It feels a bit strange to do both at the same time.
Yeah.
So it will be very confusing for users.
So just for the record, I even read an academic article very recently about moving to Stack Overflow, about what were the reasons that projects moved their developer support to Stack Overflow instead of their mailing list or forum. And usually it was like a quicker reaction and more people there to answer, and it was quite effective for that reason. However, some projects moved back from Stack Overflow because they realized later on that some of the questions that people wanted to ask were not welcome there. And I think this is a very important reason why Stack Overflow alone is not a good idea. But on the other hand, I want to encourage people to go to Stack Overflow because I think it's still useful. So that's why I'm talking about saying the two things at the same time.
No, but I don't see why you don't want to remove Stack Overflow.
No, sure, but
just
we
do Discourse independently, and then later you'll see if you want to advertise also Stack Overflow. But if you send an announcement saying we have Discourse, and we still have
yeah, it's strange.
No, but this could be like we acknowledge blah blah blah. I don't know.
Make it simple.
Okay, but maybe in the advertisement on the README, or we could do the same at the same.
Yeah, but we could also not do anything and just say that the Discourse is meant as an experiment to replace the mailing list. And don't say anything else.
I was maybe I could we could say that, but I wasn't intending to say that we wanted to replace the mailing list because I think some people will want to keep the mailing list.
Okay, but then it's something there. A lot of venues to discuss it.
Yeah, but that's a transition phase.
I mean,
I don't think you really need to.
I think
explicitly say.
I would expect the mailing list traffic to strongly drop, but it's still useful to receive like announcements, like call for papers and stuff. And unless you think that this is useless and the types announce list is enough.
There was a discussion recently.
Yeah, I know. People. But I mean, people can unsubscribe from the mailing list if there is Discourse as well.
Sure.
I don't know.
I think it's easier to announce. It's easier to announce what is being created than the motivation, the expectations, the concurrent.
Okay, so only announce what is created.
That's an opinion.
And about and finally about sunsetting CockDev, I was thinking that we were going to announce on CockDev at the same time as CockClub. That we created this Discourse instance. That the intention to make it replace the mailing list and wait a few weeks and then make CockDev read-only or basically kill it and keep the archive.
We could send a final message.
Yeah, a final message, but
why would you want to kill the archive?
No, not kill the archive. Only keep the archive.
But why do we want to kill the mailing list? It seems very useful to me, right?
Precisely not. My point is that developers should not be too much dispersed. I mean, it's less a problem for the user community, which is bigger.
I don't know. I think there are many people in CodeDev. I think this should be discussed with the people at CodeDev.
Maybe we can separate again. We can probably separate the issues. You can create the Discord, and then you see what happens, and then you take or not the decision.
Okay, so in the announcement, say maybe we will. Maybe it will replace CodeDev eventually, but we will discuss this later.
As not to name anybody, I will be surprised if certain top-level code users prefer Discourse to mailing list in any way. Yeah, so I will be very surprised.
In the OCaml community, the people that want a mailing list style interface, they've been using the mailing list mode of Discourse, where you get every message as an email, and they seem satisfied with it. And they are grumpy people.
This is stream.
Grumpy is fine.
And you know.
But that said, we have not tried Discourse for core technical discussions, and maybe you should give it a try before you decide whether you like it as much as CodeDev.
Okay.
You can launch Discourse without the CodeDev category. Anyway.
Yeah.
If you want to give it a start,
no, I want to start using it for CodeDev discussion. I really want to kill CodeDev. I
For some reason.
I hate mailing lists. I want to keep CodeClub for users, but
I think we need a reality check. I mean, this is most
We are
many
CodeDev.
CodeDev who shares the feeling.
I don't share the feeling.
No, the question is not because, for instance, I don't care, so I don't really share the feeling, but I will be fine with Discourse too. So you're going to interpret.
It's not that maybe it's not the case for the others.
Maybe you could try to use.
But you want to distinguish.
To use Discourse for CodeDev style discussion for 6
Yeah,
months, and you see what you
Yeah, I think.
I agree with this
because most
proposal.
of the people that CodeDev have no experience with Discourse.
We already don't discuss on CodeDev.
Yeah,
It's not a high traffic
discussion.
I just wanted to be sure it's not a solution looking for a problem. I mean, if the problem is Theo that doesn't like mailing list, it's the case with the solution.
No, I think the
we all dislike or find.
I think the other problem is that I think there are other problems, but okay, maybe I shouldn't have expressed it like that. Okay, but I think I have my answers. No, there was one last thing. There is a GitHub integration feature in Discourse, so it can allow to log in with GitHub. So I think this at least we should have. And then there are two other things that I'm not sure we want. There are ways to put like great contributor badges on people's profiles, but I don't think it's really useful because most of the users would not be contributors. It's not like on.
We are over time, sorry. Yeah, we need to wrap up. I think that's for the discussion. So, I think most of us we requested too little time for the discussion. By the way. Okay, so my feeling is we put this out that even for Enrico, who was more than 1 hour, finally was 1 hour this next topic. So yes, we were so now we'll do 1 hour, but indeed was the thing. Okay, so now we go to template universe polymorphisms personal feature. It was named by Enrico, but maybe
it's for me. I think
maybe you want to. Okay, I don't know, guys. Who you wants to start?
I don't know if you have a plan. I would love to have a little wrap up of what template polymorphism is supposed to
do.
Exactly.
Do you have the
Pierre can enlighten us about the big five?
Yeah, then explain the problem. Oh, maybe make a summary of the problems.
Yes.
Because there's also extraction.
Okay.
And
So, okay, the starting point, I asked the discussion because we have a proof of false.
Yes.
Right? Okay. That's something to fix.
Is there any
new fiction?
Is there any
what?
to fix it in 8.9?
Yes, I hope.
So
Can I have the title?
By the way, it seems that I wasn't really sure of what was going on, so at some point we tried to help with the very, very final steps of the release. But at the same time, I wasn't sure if it was intentional that we would release with a proof of false, because in the previous cycles.
Actually, I was not aware.
He was not aware.
Yeah, I didn't know. I mean, okay, so we had, but we were.
Maybe it was in between.
We were
maybe between Gaëtan's report and my
it was suboptimal. But maybe that's something we want to reflect a bit. So yeah, I think in the previous cycles it happened already, and the usual policy was to delay, or it's almost
When you had universes and VM,
at least once or twice we rushed a patch to make sure we would fix it before the release.
Yeah, exactly.
And the idea was
proof of faults happened in the worst times, usually just before release, and this would delay the release. But this is how it works.
So I guess you should not do release more often.
no, no, we should just ask Pierre-Marie to stop looking for some Gaëtan, sorry.
I found the proof, Gaëtan.
It was a teamwork here.
So, but at least maybe we need a policy for release versus when critical bugs.
Yeah. Can I use your adapter?
So you prepare the thing.
I can show the PR which explains the current.
This is the okay. So it's 9444. Okay. 9444. This is the. I'm going to change.
Il l'a pas reconnu.
Ouais, encore une fois, il a loupé. Non, j'aurais vu de toute façon sur mon écran. Il s'est passé quelque chose.
Ah.
Là, il a détecté.
Voilà.
Il était tout.
Big project.
Okay, so
Agrandis peut-être un peu parce que.
if you can read.
More, yeah, good, very well.
So maybe I should start by saying what were the assumptions that template polymorphism was making that led to the soundness issue. So before we had all this language for introducing universes and the ability to share them. The assumption was that if you had a binder for some X of type for in your inductive, then you could not capture this universe before the definition. And so all the constraints that came for this universe were the ones of the inductive. And you could reason on the fact that you cannot actually capture this in the inductive constructors either, this universe name. So there was no way to have constraints below that universe in the inductive.
But the kernel interface was already unsound.
But the kernel interface would allow it, yes.
So there was already something.
Yeah. And then instantiation does not, I mean, as you know that the universe has no constraint below, it does not need to check anything because it knows it can instantiate the universe with prop set whatever. Anyway, the constraints will be satisfied.
Yeah.
And there is always a constraint that is checked, which is when you instantiate this X parameter by some type A of type I, you check that I is less than J. So that the application itself is well typed. It's just that it's the type that is inferred is smaller, potentially, if you use template polymorphism.
But so okay.
So I think that's right. You go tell if I say something wrong. But,
It's okay.
Yeah.
I didn't.
But then doesn't it? Okay, this is very naive.
Yeah.
Sorry, but doesn't it invalidate the whole idea about template polymorphism that you can express the final sort by the max of the sort of the parameters? Isn't just not true then? This is what I was.
No, it can be true.
But
It
then
can
if
be
you
true
have
in many
constraints-
cases, and even if you have universes that are below.
Yeah.
I mean, constraints from below on these parameter universes. It's still true that the type of the inductive can be the max of the parameters.
It's just that okay.
The problem is that if you allow any instantiation, then you will become unsound because you need to check some constraints around it. And there is no support by default to know which constraints are associated to the inductive definition. I mean, in the system from before, or even now because the universes are global. To check this actual constraint. So you would need to see that I instantiate I with prop. Does I have a constraint below coming from the inductive definition? I need to check that these constraints hold on that to accept the instantiation. So that was missing. But now if you look to what?
we need to sort of delimit the polymorphism.
Yeah. So if you have a universe polymorphic definition, on the contrary, we do check all the constraints associated to any of the instances of the universes or the arguments, so you don't get into this problem.
But you cannot instantiate with prop in the current.
So in the current version, you cannot. And I try to lower that constraint. So it's been something that was asked by Jason a lot since the introduction, but also, I mean, there are two competing problems. Is that in the hot library, you don't want to use prop, and you don't want prop to be inferred for anything. So you need, I mean, what I decided to try is to make the lower bound on universes parametric. It's like the impredicative engagement, or it's a thing that you can set for the whole, in the global environment, for the whole environment to respect. And in this branch, I make it by default be prop instead of set. So the status before is that any universe you introduce for a polymorphic definition is greater or equal to set, and any global universe is greater than set. Okay, and with this patch, I allow the lower universe to be prop. Any polymorphic universe, as quantified universe, is greater or equal to set.
Yeah.
But any global universe that you introduce in the global context is greater strictly than set.
Okay.
Which was the convention for.
You mean prop for each type?
Hmm?
I guess you mean prop instead of set.
No, set.
Why would you want to be strictly
Greater than set?
It's when you write type.
Yeah, when you write type, you expect to be greater than set.
It
won't unify with set.
Okay.
And that was the convention from the beginning, I think, the introduction of type.
I would have expected that you could instantiate by set what I want.
Yeah, me too, at the beginning, and then I realized that the test suite did not pass because we have to rely on the fact that this unification does not happen for global universes.
Which doesn't mean we.
It's maybe not the right decision, but that was the case before.
So what changes? You said so far it doesn't change.
So what I changed is that it's no longer set. The bound is no longer set. It's prop now. So a global universe is just greater than prop. So it can be set. In that case, it can be unified with set. And a polymorphic universe is greater or equal to prop, so it can be instantiated with prop.
So now set and prop
When you say
11, and now you move.
No, set is still greater than prop, but the types you write might be just greater than prop. They might even be between prop and set.
How does today set and prop are not one on top of the other?
They are. The constraints.
Again,
yes.
there are two things: the constraints and cumulativity.
Yeah.
It's not the same thing. But what? Okay. So this is dangerous territory. It seems like, but you remember there was a proof of false by Jacari at some point. Oh, I can put universes between prop and set. It doesn't seem too bad, but
Yeah, I don't know.
It was actually bad.
For that case, for prop and set.
Yes, because some of the code was assuming things about any universe that would be strictly less than set.
I was prop.
Universe. No,
strictly below set, things were impredicative, and we were in prop, more or less.
Okay.
And so if you could introduce multiple universes there, then essentially you would get the system.
Many impredicative universes on top of each other.
So maybe we should reinvestigate.
We investigate this problem. Indeed.
But if I understand correctly, your roadmap, you're trying to re-implement the template polymorphism using standard polymorphism, but that's not going to solve quickly the issue that we have in 8.9. This is never going to land in 8.9, right? This is like a long-term fix that we're discussing.
Okay. So it's two parts right now, and I think you need to change the top part. So the bottom part is just allowing the lower bound to be prop, and that works pretty well. I mean, the test suite passes. I suspect the CI will pass easily. And then the harder part, which I tried on top of this, is to declare template polymorphic inductives as universe polymorphic inductives, implementing a check on their universes, and that is much more complicated for new reasons that I didn't see before, and mainly because you cannot mix universe polymorphic and universe monomorphic code in sections.
Yeah.
So as soon as you declare an inductive that's template in the section, everything should be polymorphic, and it's not the case in general.
We could weaken that check because The only important thing is that monomorphic things do not depend on the
Yes.
polymorphic universes.
Yes, that's true.
But this code also has a history of soundness issues, so you should be careful there too.
Yeah.
But I tend to agree with PMI. So this cannot be seen as an 8.9 fix, right?
No. So my idea for the 8.9 fix would be the first part, and the second part that when you declare a template inductive, you check that the universes which are parametric have no universe below. There's no constraint from below, so you know that you can make a copy in prop, in set, in whatever universe.
But I thought. Okay, but this is.
So that's a restriction of the template polymorphic inductives that would ensure soundness. And it would be compatible with this lowering to prop.
But I thought the problem with this that Gaëtan has raised, and probably this is addressed there, but I didn't see it, was that since all universes are implicitly quantified above set, those constraints were not added.
Yeah, but no, it's a constraint above prop.
So this is why you need the. So
it's compatible with.
You add them explicitly.
Yeah, they're always here.
Oh, but I thought but when we discussed back then the design of universe polymorphism, I thought you didn't add these constraints because of performance issues.
For fear of performance issues, but we need to try. Yeah.
Fear. Okay.
Yeah.
So did you do a benchmark of the fix then?
No. Just the first part passed, but the second part, which I tried with, which was this using universe polymorphism, just passes some of the CI.
But this is still a very large fix, right? Even if you don't have the compatibility with, if you don't rebase template
polymorphism on universe polymorphism,
you don't have the transition part. But is there no simpler fix, you think?
I think that's not that big. I mean, the fact that you use prop instead of set as a lower bound is not very long as a fix. It's not very complicated.
It's
the second. What?
It's probably dangerous. I'm pretty sure there are lots of places we didn't really think about. That looks dangerous.
Yes, it needs to be checked for sure. But you need that if you want to keep the feature of being able to lower template inductive to prop. You need that.
How many? Another thing I wanted to ask: how many users are there of this feature specifically?
Template polymorphism?
Yes.
Many.
You are.
I think there are some.
We are one.
There was this experiment that is. There was an experiment in Rico with the.
No. Imagine that we remove the feature. How much would it be hard to fix the scripts?
Every single break.
Looks
bad. But how hard is it to repair it? This is the thing.
You need to fix
libraries. You put things in type. You put everything. You remove set basically.
But this would be a feature to me.
No, but you duplicate you duplicate stuff in prop.
How many things are conjunction? Okay.
Conjunction. So you redo
conjunction, existentials.
Yeah. Existential, we already have 25 variants.
Yeah, but it means you take concert and you redo the lower layers because it uses overloaded conjunction.
Yeah.
So it's doable, but it's
non-trivial change.
Even at the level of notation, we use the symbol of conjunction for a pair and the symbol of the pair for a conjunction. We do that sometimes in MathConf. I remember that we pair lemmas. Okay.
Yeah. The same thing happens in concert. Yeah.
But you don't do that in a minor release. That was my point. By the way, we redid the Sonnet library.
But because of performance, Mathieu, this will have some performance problem.
It's making the conjunction of this.
So I think so. The fear of performance issues is mostly for universe polymorphic code. It's not for the stdlib. I don't think it will change anything. It's just. You change the constraint, I is greater than set by I greater than prop, but it will change some things with the graph, with all universes are checked, but I don't expect a big performance issue on universe monomorphic code.
We can get numbers very easily, right?
Yeah. Okay. Just taking the first few commits. This,
it's only for local universes.
Yeah. Yeah, and the check is local to the inductive. You decide at the point you see the inductive which universes can be parametric depending on the fact that they are bounded from below or not.
But then, because I remember being convinced by your performance fear argument back then. So I heard another presentation of the same thing. That was very convincing.
So a priori, but a priori, if for hot or universe polymorphic code, we disallow lowering to prop, we keep the same semantics. We keep the same.
You don't add the constraints when you don't run in this mode. Okay.
So in principle, you could even keep the same perf. I mean, exactly the same graph of universes in.
And maybe the last tricky question is how does this interact with impredicative set?
And what is the feature of
Remove the
impredicative
set and be done with it, common guide.
Why didn't you answer the issue I raised about that?
Because he was fearing.
I created an issue to ask people to say what they thought of the future of impredicative set.
Yeah, they didn't answer.
Nobody answered. It was ignored.
I thought
It's not very hard about it.
I answered it.
So I asked it 2 years ago.
I know you asked it already.
And I got replies like, this is sometimes used for impredicative encodings.
Yes, it is. I mean, it's a feature of the system that we have in impredicative set. People use it.
I was thinking about that. I was talking about that with Gaëtan this noon. Like the usual justification for the Coq theory is set, right? Set theory. But set theory is inconsistent with impredicative sets, so that's very funny. Like all the models we ever designed are inconsistent with impredicative sets, so there might be funny things lurking in the dark corners. Like,
Thierry Coquin would disagree.
Yeah,
with you.
Thierry would disagree, I think.
For that matter.
Yeah, well.
And I think, yeah, people playing with free monads and things like that use it. Then I think there are quite a few.
Yeah.
But from the engineering point of view,
Would it be sensible to think that people who want to play with impredicative set use the old versions of Coq?
Or use type inside for that matter?
The old versions of Coq with all the critical bugs.
That's a good point.
And Camel P5.
Right.
but you have to be aware that, one problem with impredicative set is that we just don't test it. I don't even know if Cocktop boots these days with impredicative set.
There's a few in the test suite.
Probably it does.
But even in the test suite, there are
some very, some tiny tests.
Unimap is testing what type in type?
What do you want to test?
Sorry?
No, Unimap is testing type of type, I think. Yeah.
But my point is that it's not very well tested.
So what could go wrong?
There's one test as far as I can tell.
Two maybe.
So what can go wrong?
What can go wrong is that you may get a system where impredicativity is assumed on more than one sort, because the system is not expecting to have many sorts strictly below.
But where do we check that?
Where do we rely on that?
Yeah.
I don't know. But,
So when you activate impredicative set, what happens in the kernel? You just allow more eliminations.
you have to be sure that being strictly less than set is not used as a way to express being prop anywhere. Otherwise,
As prop has the same problem, right?
What is the problem?
That some parts of the code rely on the invariant that anything below set is necessarily impredicative.
Oh, no, but that's not how the code does it. It does, if the universe is syntactically equal to prop, then
Usually.
Usually, yes.
Usually, everything is usually.
I don't think we check LT for anything. Actually. We might check that some universe is lower or equal to something, but to check.
I'm pretty sure the proof we had with Jacques-Henri was you had a tower of sorts, and at some point you could be seen as being below prop, just because the system wasn't expecting to have more than one sort strictly below.
Where would we do that?
We can.
We can review and.
But at least, we should.
it's pretty hard. Like, I mean, it's like reviewing the entire kernel essentially that we need to do. It might be like, we have to be super careful about what we're doing.
It is true that it still feels like for a bug fix that could go in a minor release, it seems to be on the dangerous side.
Yes, there are different tests. If we want to fix it quickly, it's possible also. We can just hack type knowing argument so that.
Sorry, we could do.
We can hack. We can change, make a test in type of inductive knowing arguments. That there is no constraints of the graph that we would lose by doing so.
But from what I understood, this is not enough because there are some constraints that are implicit.
Yeah.
Oh, you still have
you still need the first part.
Implicit.
We don't keep right now that I is greater than set in the example of the soundness.
Because it's assumed as an invariant.
But we could store it, but we.
Storing it is precisely why you want to say prop is the lower bound.
The point is currently you don't have a way to make the difference between an inductive which is allowed to put a prop and one which is not.
Yeah.
Could we do a sort of middle ground? So store the constraint, but still not allow to be strictly less than to be between prop and set.
So in that case, we would need to. So that's ugly because we have to distinguish.
Minor version,
yeah, we have to distinguish between type checking universe, a template polymorphic inductive from the rest. Saying, oh, type here might be just greater or equal to prop, but in all other cases, it's greater than.
Yes, but it's more or less what we do already because template polymorphism.
Can't we do that like exhaustively by any single universe that has been introduced by template polymorphic thing? Just instantiate it with prop and like you do all the possible combinations and start that one.
The checker does not know which universes have been introduced by an inductive.
Yeah, they're not at the same place.
In the checker, universes come with the entire library.
But would it be so bad?
We could do that, right? We type in the thing and we cover more like we instantiate it every time, right? Anyway, the max that we get. Why you put in that work? Like instead of having one time, you have all the times possible, all possible times. See what I mean? So you can do a template with multiple, but instead of having one instance, you just just check it with every.
You make all the copies.
Yeah, you
an infinite.
But you don't know how many copies to make. They are
infinite. You just need to check first things that are in prop and things that are not in prop, right? So there is a finite amount of information.
But I wouldn't be so sure that you can special case on prop.
You mean you could implement template polymorphism in the plugin?
No. We support from the kernel, but what I'm saying is that instead of like you do all the combinations of things that could be prop or not, and then you dispatch dynamically depending on the actual argument or something.
I don't think it's specifically about being in prop or not.
Yeah, the problem is cosines.
But the problem is that we could inject set into prop.
That's just the easy pass, I think. I'm sure there are tricky paths.
Or is there another family of solutions based on being more restrictive? So like when.
But why are we spending time trying to get a quick fix in 8.9 instead of just doing the right thing, fixing it in master and saying, okay, there is another critical bug known in 8.9 and moving on.
Yeah.
So what do you mean by another? That's up to date.
We have a few critical bugs open. Like
no, but okay.
Or whatever.
Okay, but traditionally there was a distinction between bugs accessible only by ML plugins and bugs exposed to user level. Yeah. Okay, and it would suggest we keep this. I mean, it would be better if we fix everything for sure, but. I think it would still be good to try to fix this one before the end of the cycle.
Whatever you want anyway. You can use OpenMagic or change, do a mutable on an array on the. But we are not able to fix that. Anyway.
So I think we all agree that the
checker can fix that.
In the array.
Well, I think leaving this bug as it is for 6 months would be a change of policy, and I wouldn't. I mean, if we could do otherwise,
It's a good idea.
I don't think it's a good message to send.
But then we put the complicated fix in 8.9. Okay, that's like.
I mean, the first part, the allowing to instantiate by prop is a feature.
But why?
It's not a bug fix in
I'm
a
asking
sense.
again, but why isn't what I suggested doable for the only for the minor release to add the constraints because we need to have the information, but still not allow the instantiation except for template polymorphism, which is already more powerful than the. I don't know if it makes sense. Maybe it doesn't.
Still not. What do you mean by still not allows the instantiation?
For regular full polymorphism, you would still not allow to instantiate universes with prop, but you would store. Basically, you keep the same logic as today, but instead of relying on an implicit invariant that all your quantifications are above set, you make it explicit in the graph, so that when you check template polymorphism, you have the information. And then, so that's one way, right? And then
there is still a patch to make to template polymorphic. To the
yes,
processing of
to
template
check.
polymorphism to do a check.
Yes, exactly. But you have the information that you need to do the check, if I understand correctly. Well, maybe then you. But
it's
isn't
a bit
it
less
enough to know if there is a local? What is exactly missing? So, okay, if you take the system of today and you want to, so clearly there is a missing check. Okay, so you want to add the check. What is missing exactly? I think that was
storing the constraint you want to check. Essentially.
No, but the constraint is if there is.
Asking why you can check it on the spot. I think.
But if you see a local universe, you still have some constraints, okay? I know because you may have not at all. Yeah, but that's
global.
Okay, I think it's easier to add the constraints and make the invariant explicit in the graph. Okay. So maybe I don't see the problem.
And then you could have really different performance profile if you check at each time you retype check a template polymorphic thing if the constraints are okay. It's going to be the same as using universe polymorphism.
No, sorry. Once you have the information, and you do the check once and for all, if it can be.
Yes, you can.
Yeah, you do it once
so we
and
could
for
do
all.
that, and I could remove the ability to instantiate polymorphic things by prop. Is it true still?
If you add the constraint after the fact to a sort parameter, what happens?
Yes.
Isn't the computed sort incorrect now?
After the fact, you can't. This is the
you can't?
You can only do the inside inductive. This is what I understand.
Yes. Yes, okay. Sorry. So it makes sense. Okay. And it
that's a good question. Can you add a lower constraint on the parameter universe after? I mean, in a later definition, yes. In principle, yes. I don't see why not.
Because they are global, right? They're global.
Yeah. You can just declare one.
So then you would still be. I don't know, but it's.
But you can still make a copy.
But you check at instantiation time. When would that check have occur? That is the question. When would that check go?
The check occurs at the definition of the inductive.
But
because you know that you can make a copy at the lower universe. But you have to think of this as instantiating the universes at a specific levels. So it's each time different copies of the same inductive. Right? Instantiated at different levels. The important part is that you can, at the time of the definition of the inductive, take that copy. So even if you add later constraints that would be incompatible, they don't talk about the same instance of the template polymorphic inductive. The thing is that as it's implicit, you don't see it, but if you add a universe polymorphic version, you would see that you have two different instances. That you cannot add a constraint below to the universe if the constraint don't agree in the inductive. If you're doing that.
Yeah, but what I am missing in the picture is what relation you store between the computed sort and the parameters. Just express it as a max? Or?
Yeah, it's just a max of some levels. You can. The structure allows you to say which levels are parametric or not.
So for example, if you have two parameters,
yes,
and you know that they have a constraint between each other, are you going to still keep the two in the max, or are you going to keep only one? Because if you make assumptions there, it could be invalidated if you then.
No, you take the two.
No, it will still be. No,
you take the sub.
No, it's still correct.
Yeah.
You just need to keep this much plus eventually the fact that it's greater than set.
Yeah.
This is the thing.
Or some other.
Yes. Yes. That's the intuition.
Yeah. So the check that I was proposing is if the universe has any constraint below, we refuse to be parametric on it. That fixes the bug instantly.
Okay.
This is also
This is more convincing.
But you need to know if there's a constraint on it.
But then I know at the time of the declaration of the inductive.
Yeah, so you can drop the constraint.
Yeah.
What you're saying. Okay.
So I dropped the universe from being quantified. So the level of the inductive will depend on it always.
Yes,
So
yes, but even if it has no lower constraint,
you know it is.
You say, okay, this will be fully polymorphic or fully template, and then you can forget about this.
Yeah.
This extra constraint and obtain the same performance that we have to do.
Yeah.
But then we still
and also I
care why it's not a problem if you then add the constraint.
So I also check that so universes that can be template polymorphic in my case are the ones introduced by the definition which have no constraint below.
Yeah. If they have a constraint
so
below,
it's the same
you don't know yet.
Implicit invariant that we had before.
So if it's impossible to lift it afterwards, after the facts, you say no.
Okay.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah.
So how much work is that?
That's already implemented. The problem is that it does not pass CI.
What?
No, but it does not pass CI because I did that by also trying to emulate with template polymorphism.
Yeah, but this is.
So I have just to remove that part and try again without that addition.
Oh, you also okay. So in your branch, what you did is you lowered to prop the basic quantification, you store more constraints.
Yeah.
And if constraints apply at the time you try to make things template, then you may
then
say no.
I try to make it a universe polymorphic.
On the fly?
Yes.
Oh,
well, that was just an experiment, just to see.
Yeah, but I think this is
it doesn't work.
No, because I think either we managed to do the full switch to all template polymorphic things to full polymorphism.
And that would be okay.
No, it's only from what you told me. It's only when you find yourself in the restricted area.
I mean, outside the restricted area, it's not template polymorphic. That's the only. I mean, it's template polymorphic, but on no universes. If you want.
No. If in your branch, if the user defines a template polymorphic type, but whose universe don't have a number constraint, regular.
It still tries to make it polymorphic. The full switch. Trying the full switch. Okay. I was a bit too eager.
Okay. No, that's good.
Too optimistic.
Okay, but maybe so let's split the change.
Yeah.
The plan is to stop making this universe polymorphic in 8.9 and to make everything universe polymorphic in 8.10.
Yeah.
Or 9.0. Right?
Yeah.
I guess you had a discussion on the.
Yeah.
Not yet.
Not spoil the discussion. Yes, so from the user face side, so Jason reviewed a little bit, and he finds this kind of problems. So here we are in universe polymorphic mode. So this type can be lowered to prop right now.
But then, okay, I'm lost again.
Yeah.
So I thought we don't need to change this to get the fix.
What do you mean you don't think? I mean, you have like a proof. Sorry? This is what
so you get the fix, but right now with this change that I say any universe you introduce by default is just lower or equal to prop.
Yeah, but this is something nice that you try to
and then
do
I could say
on top of
your universe polymorphic, then make it greater or equal to set.
This is more like a feature that is useful, but you introduce on top of the.
And that's the same idea as not allowing prop for universe polymorphic instances.
Okay, so how could we summarize the discussion so far? I wrote soundness bug, the proposal by Mathieu. Removal of template polymorphisms is not reasonable. Everything will break. And what will be a hotfix be? It seems possible. Okay, so what more conclusions?
Whether we have time for a hacking session
Tomorrow,
later or tomorrow.
Yeah, well, there is
To try out
2 hours.
We should try this hotfix.
To try the hotfix. So, okay, so the plan for 8.9 is the hotfix, and for 8.10, this your PR should be 8.10 material, Mathieu.
Yeah, the whole thing. I mean, with moving to template to full universe polymorphism.
Well, we didn't use the full hour. I don't know. I
don't know, Gaëtan and Pierre-Marie, what do you think?
You want to talk more?
Don't ask Pierre-Marie to talk more.
Hola, Pierre-Marie.
I can't hear you very well. What did you say?
Like, if you want to.
Do you want to comment or
you want
do you think it's reasonable?
Yeah.
Do you foresee any problem?
I'm just a spectator in that case because I have this is beyond my.
That's what Pierre-Marie says when he suspects there is going to be a problem and he doesn't want to be responsible.
He doesn't want to.
Yes.
You're like a Blade Runner.
I'm not betting on this actual thing.
So what are the cumulativity relations between in the long-term design where you have these universes between prop and set? What about cumulativity?
Well, it defines cumulativity, right?
Sorry?
It defines cumulativity. I is less than set.
Okay.
Prop is less than I.
Yeah, but prop.
From where do you go this constant? From where do you go? Do you get this constant?
Well, you can make some in the system you can make something universe polymorphic on IJK and do I is prop, K is set, and I less than J less than K. Just by instantiation, it's allowed, and nothing in the graph prevents the universe between prop and set, so it's a valid constraint.
In your branch, right?
Yeah.
So you do not ensure that set is the lowest universe. It's not. It's a type of no other universe.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't check that. Yeah. I don't enforce that. Yeah.
And why not? What's the point of having set if set can be the type of a sort?
Can it?
Okay, so you're saying by typing, by an invariant on typing, we know that we never generate a sort that is not greater than set, because prop has type set plus 1, set has type set plus 1.
This is the only thing that distinguishes set from except for impredicative set.
But I don't think we should allow
It used to be the case, right?
types between prop and set.
It sounds fishy, yes.
Sorry, Gaëtan?
We should not allow types between prop and set.
Yes, and we should not allow prop strictly lower than set also.
Yeah, another thing that is dangerous is, sorry, but...
That was a change not that long ago, right?
Yeah.
It used to be the case that set and prop were
comparable. Could be convertible.
That prop and set can be identified.
Yeah.
There is a model where a prop and
set are the
an
same.
impredicative set are the same.
Yeah.
Well, no, it used to be the case that prop was not in the set.
Nothing.
Was not included in the
It's
set.
still not the case.
No, it is included.
No, included, yes.
But strictly.
No, not strictly.
But are we talking about the typing relation or the cumulativity relation? Because precisely it's,
There is no typing of
prop. It's
set
not
is
of
the
type.
type of nothing. So
Yes.
there is no reason to have a strict
But it's included.
subtyping.
Yeah.
Also a bit funny, but
Yeah.
we like to live dangerously.
Yes. Sometimes you get your just desserts.
But the reason was precisely to preserve the fact that you have no universe between prop and set.
So another
To add this
area
concept.
where it could be dangerous is the elimination restrictions, where you need to talk about large types.
Yeah, I think
And
that's
we
the
need to
only,
make sure that the system
that's the only place where impredicative set influences the type checking algorithm, no? Just elimination of inductive. No?
Also protect the rules for
And the rule for products,
obviously.
obviously. The rule for products, obviously, but it's not involving constraints. It's just producing a max.
Not completely sure. But it's the only thing. Yeah, and so something that could be dangerous in terms of implementation, if you have universes between set and prop, is that sometimes we may have the kernel checking that something is not set because it needs to be a large type. But then it could be one of these I or J.
Okay.
Okay,
No, the set is included.
It's already the case.
By current utility, it's not for
Okay, but
Okay, so let's, even if I suggest we cut the session 5 minutes short, because the next session, some external people is connected. It's supposed to be the diversity session. We have almost 2 hours. We could do another session tomorrow. It's up to you on continue to this topic. I don't know if somebody wants to do another remark,
I don't know
final
the
remark.
feeling about everybody, but I think for this universe problem, we would need maybe in a smaller group.
Yeah, that seems clear, right?
Yeah.
I just want to say something, is that the current pull request is too large for Ecotmine.
Yeah.
Yes, clearly. I mean, it looks like it.
How much do we need to cut in terms of number of lines?
Little,
To a point where I cannot understand it.
one of the left is funny.
Deeply recursive.
Yeah, this guy at Nanda, they are shut up because what they are listening to your fixes and are doing another proof of false and
not
top of their fixes.
They are waiting for the next release.
Yeah, they're waiting for. Okay, so I updated the wiki, but I'm not an expert on this topic, so feel free to amend my notes on the thing. So the next session. So by the way, we have some people connected, so feel free to. I will do a short introduction, then you can present yourself. So the next session is actually like in the last year there has been like this is. Sorry?
You need to plug your.
No, not really. No, it's very short because actually the motivation to do a session on diversity, which is not a formal Coq statement, is not you cannot define in higher order logic, as some people pretended recently in the mailing list. I think like it's more like difficult to define. But actually, this in Cascais we had CoPL, and there were some comments around like CoPL, like all the speakers were like from the same background. Already for the last year implementer workshop, actually some people raised the topic, and in fact I personally tried to invite some, for example, some members that are coming from a different background or are like women or different nationalities, and I didn't succeed. They told we don't want to go to hang with the Coq hackers. And at Reading Code implementer workshop, we have a small discussion about why people were maybe some kind of a profile were not interacting with the community, and there were some reasons given, like for example, like we don't want to write to Coq Club because this big name professor will see me writing, so I'm afraid, etc. And well, but for example, CoPL was very disappointed. I think was the Popel event with less diversity of all the events, which is bad. Okay, in several metrics. Of course, I don't want to get into discussions. So, of course, I think we've been discussing this for a while. I can mention, for example, a couple of years ago, we discussed a bit on this community session. We didn't do a good job, I think, because, for example, I remember as I was trying to make a point and we didn't let her talk, we interrupted her too much. And what more I could say? For example, we have a code of conduct. I wasn't too happy about the code of conduct because it seems to me like we are still not getting why it is needed. I like to say, like, of course, for us, like, if we look into the room, I think it's safe to say, like, in the room, we are basically, like, from the point of diversity, we are cloned from each other. We are just missing, like, we could be from the same school. Okay, I'm Spanish, you have one Spanish, one Italian. Okay, and that's it. So even there is not, like, diversity in the countries. And of course, the two of us, we are Charnot friends, live in France and are well integrated into the French system. So yeah, I mean, I thought it could be an interesting idea to see if somebody could contribute because, for example, as I'm not sure as we can do a lot on diversity because, I mean, we never suffer a lot of this problem, I guess. For example, so yeah, I don't know. I think, like, of course, we have a code of conduct, some measures possible we can discuss. Some people in private mention some suggestions. But I think first we can try, if some of the people, like, some of the people who is on the Visio would like to introduce themselves and would like to share. I think like maybe it will be better for people joining for people joining the Visio to start. So I don't know. There is Larry, there is Jean Olivier, there is Rob, there is Mokomo.
Are we supposed to see some?
Yeah, I can see them. But,
you can see them on your
laptop. I can see them on my laptop. Oh, so the new screen is happening. So it's Larry there. Hi, Larry. Hi. Can you see us?
Hey guys.
Hi. Thanks so much for coming.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. How are you? Thanks so much for coming.
So thanks for sending the invitation out to the Code Club yesterday. I didn't actually know about the working group meeting that was held looks like every month or so. So I certainly look forward to attending. I'm actually representing Sci5, I guess, on this call, so calling from that company. And so if I had things I could concretely recommend, I think one of the challenges that the Code Club has is that its visibility is relatively low. So there's a lot of developers I know who I'm interacting with out here in the States, where I go and I start talking about Coke to them and they're like, what's that? So I think just in terms of expanding the reach, increasing the amount of outreach material you provide, the sort of training material that you guys have to offer, and just raising the level of visibility would be a very concrete, easy step to make. So maybe we could talk about that. Can y'all hear me well?
Sure. Well, at least here at Paris, we hit you perfectly.
Okay, great. So I don't know if anybody else wants to carry past that, say anything else, contribute anything else. So.
Well, I don't know, but this is actually good to raise that point because, for example, I think like the last community discussion, the same point was raised. So sure. I mean, like how long have you been involved with Coke?
Yeah, so I've been working with Coke. Started teaching myself and training up in this about 6 years ago, and I discovered that the first sort of textbook that I was able to find as sort of training material was Coke Art. So finding good, solid, not just introductory material or tutorial material, but like solid textbooks to kind of carry you through the process. And I've been working with it professionally for about a year with Sci5, where we're adopting Coke as our formal verification engine for the work we're doing.
So yeah, of course, that seems pretty clear, right? Like having this bad learning material, it means like people not like in INRIA is going to have a very hard time. Yeah. Sure. So how did you?
I think one of the challenges is just visibility, right? I mean, as you make a system, a community more visible, you're able to bring in newer people from more diverse backgrounds. Right now, my sense is that INRIA is really the sort of center of this, and part of the sort of branching out or expansion process, involves making it more visible beyond the research community in which it was developed.
So good.
So. Should we have like
but maybe Theo, you can say I'm Theo, because I think Larry doesn't know.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Theo. Do you think we should have like a user community page that lists, I don't know, like people or places where there are people using Coke, or should we try to have to encourage people to organize meetups everywhere where there are users? I don't know. Are these the kind of things that would increase visibility?
I think so. So I'm out on the East Coast, and it's relatively hard to find people in this region, the East Coast of the States, that are using Coke. But my company that I work for, Sci5, is based out in San Francisco, and I know that they've started to organize a meetup group out there that's focused on using Coke. And from what I've heard, that has been a great driver to sort of bring in people who are from neighboring communities to come into this field, right? So developers who are already part of the hacker scene, who are looking, exploring what other systems are out there. They hear about the meetup group and then they show up. So in terms of expanding your geographic reach, making it easier for groups to network and meet, within the regions that they actually are in is certainly a benefit. For example, I don't know if there's any groups based in the DC, Baltimore area that are actively using this system.
Okay.
Whereas if I did, I would certainly plug into it and participate.
So we should at least.
Related.
Sorry.
There is this. Well, it's not related to the US in particular, but there is. I know that there used to be at least there used to be that probably is still there a group in Japan of people we've never heard of, and you can find them sometimes by pure chance lurking on the internet, but you never know whether. I have no idea what is the status of that group, but there used to be quite a vocal group there, locally at least.
No, they're still there, I think.
Eve knows.
Eve knows.
Eve knows. But which one? I mean, there might be several groups because I think there's one in Tohoku and there is one as well in Nagoya. Not sure which one, but we could have a federation, say.
Yeah. By the way, Pierre-Marie, you
There
did.
was one in Tsukuba too. Well, there's one in Tsukuba too. And Tsukuba is not close to
Tsukuba.
Nagoya and not close to Tohoku.
This is a very good idea. I think Larry Jane did. We should organize that part. Yeah, by the way, Pierre-Marie, you didn't say your Pierre-Marie. You didn't say your Pierre-Marie. Yes, like.
Sorry. Yeah.
Pierre-Marie Pedrold.
No worries.
Yeah.
So I have a question. Do you think it would be useful to have presentations about COC in kind of wider developers conferences that we?
Yes, most definitely. I noticed that a lot of the sort of conferences that are announced on the Coke channel, they're very focused on either logic or formal methods, in that narrow space. But when I talk to engineers who are coming from more of an engineering background where they're building systems, once I start explaining to them what Coke is and how the system works, I get a lot of excitement. So
the next question,
branching out to.
So the next question is whether you would be volunteering to do some talks.
Well, I don't know necessarily where I would be able to plug in. I mean, so one of the challenges that I heard mentioned was that, people had been invited. All the conferences I see are in Europe, and, I'm in the States and I'm working. So it's kind of hard for me to kind of fly out to attend a conference in Paris, for example. But if there were, regional conferences out here, or, obviously I'd be interested in contributing to the community after become involved with it. So.
Well, before Eva, I'd like to say that Adam Klipiala has been very active in going to conferences, for example, the Chaos Communication context, and presenting COC. Okay, so sorry, Eva,
Yeah, I was thinking,
This
I have the impression, this is Gilberto. I have the impression that the kind of document we have written so far, like the Software Foundation books or COCART or something like that, they're mostly directed at people who are in the research line of work. And what you're talking is, you say, I'm looking at a different kind of public, people who are mostly into engineering. And do you have the impression that we would need to write something different for this kind of public?
Yeah, I would say that the current bias in the documentation is very theoretically balanced, and it requires a background in type theory and a good amount of exposure that's a little foreign for, say, your average, say, Python developer, right? But my experience is that, the system itself can be explained to people who don't necessarily have a very strong background in the theoretical foundations, and that they can start to pick that up once they become engaged with it. So it's sort of a case where once you say what the system can do, then people get excited, and then they're willing to invest the time to learn how the system works, and then they're interested in applying it to their engineering projects. And so, CodeGuard, I wouldn't necessarily say it's the ideal textbook. I think if we had we kind of took a little bit more from the AGDA community, where there's sort of slightly to our slightly closer to sort of the implementator side. I looked at how they did things when they reached out in the documentation that they provide. Might provide a model for writing accessible documentation and more users who are looking to develop systems, engineering background, and I think you'll get a diversity boost from that.
Yeah, because I was not going to ask you to do the same thing as Emilio about going to talk with people, but it might be interesting to group people like you, also like Michael Nahas that we've been seeing in the discussion on the mailing list very recently. To say, would you proofread or give advice on some kind of document that we would try to aim at a different public?
Yeah, sure. I'd be happy to. If I saw a draft come across, I was actually contemplating starting a little YouTube channel where I would start walking through and explaining the system as well. I think, it's reaching out over multiple channels, making it as accessible as possible. All of that I think would be.
I would like to play with this.
It would be an obvious way to improve accessibility and increase access.
Yeah. But actually, about the document, I think maybe I would like to remark about the first point Larry was talking was visibility or discoverability. Like, I think we are trying to do many things, but we are not still doing a good job at communicating. Like, for example, not even OCaml developers know that code can compile. No, I think they do. Can compile on trunk or this stuff. It's an example of even like close. So yeah, for example, so my question, Larry, is, how do you find so far like the community? I mean, what's your impression? Did you find something of Putin, or maybe you think it's very confusing, like to understand what's going on? What are your views about like the community or GitHub page, all this stuff?
Yeah, so I think part of this might be my own fault, but it may also be a little bit of design and presentation, right? So I've been working. I started training in this system with this system about 6 years ago, and it was only about about a year ago that I began becoming a package maintainer and making contributions to the standard library. And so I think, and another example is I just discovered that there's this working group meeting, right? So I think that the community can be more proactive about showing the community side and sort of giving an easy overview of, here are the groups that are working on it. Here's when they're meeting. Here's where you can find groups who are in your region, who are engaged with this. These are the things that the community, the larger ecosystem are doing. So, if you go to the Coke homepage, you're giving a very small sample of that, and it's really hard to get an overall picture of what's going on. And if you look at Git, you see a lot of activity, but really hard to sort of contextualize that and get the big picture, right? Yeah. So making it easy for people to just see what the ecosystem is doing, know who some of the players are and where they can plug in, will get, I think, greater participation. You may have a lot of users who work the first 2 or 3 years where they're learning and they're writing small projects in this, who are just completely under the radar as a result.
Great. Thanks.
So I have a suggestion that comes from also one of the things that was said about
Gabriel, maybe you can.
Sorry, yes, I'm Gabriel, by the way. Forgot to introduce myself. Yes,
hey, Gabriel.
If you are going to start a discourse instance for Coq, as we discussed previously, could you consider having also non-English instances, like one for Japanese people, and maybe also there is a Chinese community that is not so comfortable with English? Because I don't know
but
what
we would need we would need to have some moderators there.
Yes,
organized.
You could write an email. And
we can try to do that.
Yeah, but probably do a call for volunteers and find volunteers for these languages.
I thought I have some experience because I started, Gabriel, I started like the types list, which is like, it's a word game between tipo, which is like guy in Spanish. So I started a version of the type mailing list in Spanish. And actually, I totally support this because it's very interesting, even if Spanish, of course, is mostly Spain people, but some people from Latin America are coming. It's still like in beta, but at some point we will announce it. And indeed, it's very interesting. It's a very different background. I'm Spanish myself, Larry, so I'm from Spain, but indeed it's a very different background, like how we talk in Spanish and how you have this English mailing list. So I think indeed, at least for the Spanish world, this course, I could be a moderator. I think this is going to be very useful based on this experience on the types mailing list. Yeah.
I had, so another point, I mentioned it on the mailing list. I'm trying to have an outreachy internship this summer for the OCaml community. So I'm one of the OCaml maintainers these days. And I don't know yet whether I will actually have an intern because the project is hacking on a compiler is a bit more advanced technically than many other topics, and it may be harder to get interns. But one of the things that is interesting is that Outreachy asks you for easy contribution tasks. So because the application process, the way it works is to apply, people have to send a small PR to your project first, even if it's something very simple. And in the OCaml community, one thing we have not been very good at is keeping a place where we list some easy things that people can do to contribute. And it's actually forcing me to do a bit more of that. And I think maybe it could be a good exercise for Coq as well. So the thing is, Outreachy, you have you have to bring the money to, so it's like the Google Summer of Code is targeting more diverse applicants, but the organization have to provide the money. It's 6,500 per intern. But I think Coq would have the resources to try having one or, a couple interns to try it, and I would recommend doing that.
In this, I think more that the problem is we are very biased toward technical work, and in this, so of course, we are all here, at least in this room, most of us are very technical users. So I think you're right. Like it's a bit harder to imagine not so much technical things. Like to try to, there is a lot to do in Coq, which is not super technical, like type theory. And of course, this is like, but yeah, it's hard for us to come up with, yeah. But definitely, we're going to try to, Gabriel, we're going to try to do this program. Yeah.
I think there is going to be an internship window from May to August. So if you have some topics in mind and you know how to find the money quickly, you can apply now.
So no, Fox. Maybe
we have other people.
We have other people. I don't know, Larry. Thank you so much. It's extremely appreciated you joining. Okay,
I appreciate it. Appreciate meeting you guys and seeing you guys, actually seeing your faces. Just don't get
yeah, it's cool. Yeah, it's really cool because actually we really like people to join. It's not so easy. So even if I send the mail, was not with a lot of notice. So it's really appreciated. And well, we have a wiki, by the way, not you mentioning. So we put a summary of the discussion on the wiki. So of course you can feel free to go to the wiki and maybe if you would like to complement whatever. And I guess we can ask indeed, there is some people, there is Rob and Mokomo. So I don't know if they would like to maybe participate. Hi Fox, you are silent. Mokomo, Rob, I'm not sure. Yeah. Also, well, one question is we tend to have this kind of events. Larry, for example, like we try to have one event every year, which is called the Coq Implementer Workshop, that people can come and hang out with the developer meeting. But of course, this is not very accessible. It usually happens in France. And even the first year, we had a lot of people from the US. That was really cool. But then in the subsequent years, it has fallen a bit. We are back to the point. We are again almost the same Fox here. Yeah, the same. Yeah.
Last year we had a few people.
We improved.
And I think we actually paid for one trip from the US.
Yeah. But the numbers are terrible. For example, like we have numbers were bad. Like we have.
But it was getting better than the previous year.
Yeah, but another option would be to also organize this kind of things in the US, which would mean moving the team in the US if there is enough people who want to come.
Enough money.
We could try that, or we could try to spend. Last year, we got some people from the US because we sent some invitations, but we sent them relatively late. I remember, so we could try to be more careful about that and have better chances of success.
Who's in charge right now of organizing this?
I wanted to say a few words about that
Maybe tomorrow.
Maybe Pierre-Marie is volunteering to organize one edition next year.
Yeah, well, we should send a mail. Yeah. So indeed, though, it seems to me a good idea. Like for example, like this kind of 1 hour open meeting. Well, the working group is open, but usually it's very technical. So I think it seems a good idea to hold this meeting at every working group. We could try to, as a state, because for example, I personally contacted many members, many COC users, well, a handful of COC users that I personally know that they are from not the standard background. We are in this room, and all of them told me no, I won't join the meeting. So using Larry is really hard. So this is really appreciated. It's really hard. Like a few of them told me I have nothing to say. I have nothing. Many of them they didn't want to were afraid of presenting themselves. Or yeah. So maybe we should try to make this every month. So finally, people have more opportunities to come and discuss. And yeah. So for example, already you gave us ideas to fill 2 months of work, like with the community and the meeting group, user groups, and yeah. You know, another call, Rob Mokomo. Hello, folks. Hola. Yeah, not answer. Okay, so well, maybe.
So you can also have discussion about it on the discourse, because it could also be easier for some people to talk asynchronously than to show their face.
That's right.
Yeah. So, well, now we have a community, a code of conduct. We have a community. This is called community. No, but the people in charge of the code of conduct. So yeah, we have
enforcement team.
This is a bad name. I mean,
this is a name meant to carry meaning, which is that the code of conduct is being enforced, and this is important.
Does the code of conduct allow saying that that enforcement team is a bad name?
Yes, it allows many things.
So I had a point on discourse and moderation, which is not completely unrelated to diversity. My experience in moving some discussion from camel list to discourse is that so on the camel list there is no moderation at all. So if someone sends dev to someone else, maybe someone would do something. It hasn't happened as far as I know. On discourse, there are more things. I'm a moderator and I get flags on actions I need to do. Sometimes because the system is the spam filtering is a bit trigger happy. So if you create an account and you post with a new URL, it will say, oh, I need a moderator to confirm that this is not spam. But also because people will click this not constructive or off-topic button that don't exist on the camel list. So interestingly, I think the level of discourse is as good, but there is more work for moderators because people are using new tools to express the fact that it's not as good as it would be. And I think that's something you have to plan. It's not a lot of work. I connect twice a week, and sometimes there is a flag I need to handle something.
Yeah.
And I think that so people have higher expectations on the level of discourse and so on the form that gives them the tools to enforce good behavior or to flag bad behavior, less good behavior. There has been no big moderation issue so far, but small.
But this off-topic question, is it because it's off-topic of the current discussion, or it's off-topic for the OCaml?
No, generally, because it's off-topic for the current discussion. People feel that a comment is derailing a conversation, talking about something completely different. I'm sure it happens in.
Oh yes, it happens.
No. So
we're so focused.
Okay.
I had another question on. So talking to conferences, is there some support from the COC, whatever organization? If someone says, well, I would like to present COC to this conference, which is not quite in my town, but it's 2 hours of plane away, can you fund attending a conference to give a talk about COC to a general audience?
I think with the ADT we can do such things.
Except there's no ADT. Except there is no ADT.
What do you mean?
People constantly.
What I do now is that every year I knock the door and I say, last year we asked you for so much money. So this year we probably use the same amount. And so we have been very shy to ask money until now, so that makes that. So it's very difficult. People tend to spawn at you if you ask money. You don't.
So basically, the answer is yes in principle. but we need a kind of bootstrap process from what I understand. It would be better if we can announce
That we will
the
do
levels for
some
next year.
conf or something.
You see what I mean? So like if we expect to have no such event, and then we need money suddenly, it's a bit of a problem. And conversely, it's hard for even I to announce that we are going to need this amount, just because we don't know if people are going to volunteer.
So there is no existing budget line where you could take.
There
money
is,
from-
there is, right now, if you ask me to go to one conference this year, I would probably be able to say yes. But, and if I see this ramping up, then I may have to change the way I request for money from the top management.
In fact, I think it's good you ask, because basically we have to give feedback on what we need.
Anyways, I think well, I think these internal details maybe for.
No, it's also for external people.
But
I mean,
there's a question,
external.
so, because Larry mentioned this problem of visibility. So if you
Visibility.
can say, well, this year we can pick one of the big developer conferences in the US.
Yeah, sure.
And have someone, preferably local artist with a good English accent,
local.
give a talk there. And we have some support for that. I think that could be good.
I think if Larry was now to tell me, you should go to this conference in Las Vegas, I don't like conferences in Las Vegas, but I would make an effort if I was advised.
This is a
From
good
a
place
professional point of view, this is a good place to go, but there are many places where I just
You don't know.
dare to go.
We're not very familiar with the.
Yeah, but also coordination is bad because I know Benjamin. Sorry, Larry. I know, but also Benjamin or Adam. Yeah, I thought.
I was just sympathizing with what he said. Unfortunately, I don't have any specific conferences that I can say, go here. You will get the best, the best return for your time. But I would perhaps recommend that there's, say, groups that are working or conferences around, say, Haskell. That community I know has a lot of split interest into both, your other basic programming languages, functional programming languages, and it seems to be a pretty easy pathway for us in the States to go into, say, Coke and OCaml. So that community will probably be very sensitive to learning about Coke as well. Good for conferences.
Anyways, but I see also a problem of coordination because, for example, all this stuff Adam is doing, somehow he's doing on his own, and I think we're lacking this kind of. I'm not sure community manager will be like the right person to be like trying to improve diversity, for example, and outreach. But yes, certainly we need a bit more of coordination, and it's not easy.
We could think of trying to see if we could say something in the TEDx place or something like that. But it's not just about receiving the name of the conference. Maybe going to such a conference which is outside of our usual path is something that would take a year because we have to contact them. We would have to make sure that we don't go there to be just one anonymous guy in the crowd. We will have to make sure we are given some time to speak to people and we prepare the right material to address the right kind of audience. I think it's very interesting that we talk about it, but it won't happen in a snap.
Yeah, indeed. But maybe we need a bit more of a spokesperson, a coordinator. We had Larry a bit of discussion this morning about communication, more like communication about like what we are doing and who is in charge of. But certainly it's very related. Yeah. So I guess I don't know. At least from my part, Momoko. Sorry, I say that her name. So maybe Momoko is gone. Prof still said nothing, but I think from my part, I don't know what you think, folks. My proposal is, of course, we reflect all these ideas and we try to move forward with them. And also, I feel like maybe as the meetings are almost monthly, I will propose we keep this diversity meeting in a time schedule which tries to be the best for everybody around the world. And this is all. And I will personally try to, for example, what I will try to contribute is for this summer meeting we have in Europe usually. I will try to be sure I will try to push a bit more for people who are not so experts. I mean, I will particularly try to make the outreach of this meeting wider. Okay, let's see how much I succeed because last year I got not many no's. And yes, and so But this is what I can do. For example, what I'm going to try to focus in the diversity front and coordinate this meeting.
And then the first thing we should do is to clearly set up the dates and the budget.
But it should be good, for example, to say, yeah, but already I can send a message again, like we are not sending many messages to COP, even about the releases and this stuff. People is all the time asking on GitHub what's going on, so because some messages go to COP Dev, okay. So again, I'm not happy, at least personally, with the communication level. Of course, it's a personal opinion, but I think I can send already like, okay, we have this meeting. We were so lucky to have Larry talking. Okay, some other people wrote to me in private. I can do a small summary and say, for example, I can say, like, hey, everybody, like in the summer, we want an event and we want the event to be a bit more focused on because it's called COC implementers. So first thing we should do is to change the name, obviously.
Change name.
Yeah, again, but, obviously. Well, maybe the COC implementers is not a good place. We should have a different gathering.
That's what I was thinking. Maybe people who want to go to COC implementers meeting are happy about the current content of this thing, which is not exactly the same. But then we really have to plan over the full year, because there is what to understand. There is a workshop. There is a workshop planned in the US on the West Coast, associated to ITP.
Yeah, but the solution is like Ableton, for example. Maybe what we should do is together, we should split the meeting into the COC user meeting and the COC implementers meeting.
So we tried to do this 1 year. To have two separate events. You remember? One in Fontainebleau or something like that?
Yeah.
But in the end, I don't know. I mean, I was a bit.
No, let's do in the same event. I mean, let's do like 2 days of user meeting and 3 days of developer meeting. Yes, because for example, many of us would like to overlap, I guess.
That's just the time we did that was only 1 year of user meeting, but we could do.
Maybe we can split implementer, like as to say, okay, 2 days are going to be more like user, because last year, in a sense, we did that because we did a mix already. Yeah, with implementer meetings, certainly I can understand, like I tell like a COC user, I tell a person like a COC user, which is a postdoc or whatever, I tell, please, can you come? And they tell me, oh, the COC implementer meetings, no way I'm going to come if I'm using COC a lot. It's 4 gigs typing a camel all the day. Yeah. So
we should define the content, I think.
Yeah.
We'll find a name.
But they're very different ones.
Yeah, also objectives. Well.
But I can help with organizing the event, but I would need more people involved to define the content of a user meeting, and then maybe Emilio sends the.
Yeah, well, not sure. Well, I will send a small thing on diversity, and I will try to summarize and say indeed, like for example, this is coming from Larry's suggestion. Like actually, we want to potentiate a bit more like user communities, and of course, we were going to try to do one in Europe. And of course, I mean, hopefully, US people want also to.
My point is that we really need to set up the team of people working on the organization now. I mean, now.
No, sure.
This week, right? It would be good.
Sure.
Because otherwise, we're going to be late, and this is also a factor of not getting positive answers. Sure. That is too late. 25.
Okay.
All right. So. I know we are all right.
We're all right.
All right, Larry.
Thank you.
So thank you so much again. It's much appreciated. Hopefully see you next month. Yeah, nice to meet you. Hopefully see you next month. And well, if you are reading CodeClub, so for sure you'll get the summary link. And as I said, feel free to edit the wiki or whatever, or add your own remarks. Okay, please. This isn't by no means is like a. By all means it's open to people to contribute in the wiki, the summary, and that's it. Ourselves, we are gonna go home. Okay, so have a nice day.
Bye.
All right, take care.
Ciao.
Bye. Ciao.
And ciao to Gaëtan and Pierre-Marie as well.
Bye, Nantes.
Maintenant, on ferme tous les.
À bientôt, Pierre-Marie Gaëtan.
I'll see you tomorrow, right?
Yes. So tomorrow we are starting at 10, right?
Yeah.
Are you coming tomorrow?
No.
Not here, we can create it remotely, right?
Vincent is coming, maybe?
Vincent is coming tomorrow.
I am coming, yes.
Okay.
So is starting Maxime. So we have a special Denise surveillance session. Okay? We have Maxime has 2 topics about his refactorings and his work in progress. And also Hugo has a topic on the primitive projections and on the organization. That was scheduled for today, was a better fit, but we had unfortunately to move it because Hugo couldn't come.
I also requested.
Yeah, it was a better fit for today, was more like, and then we have a hacking session until lunch. And then we have to start a bit early because Arthur Charquerol is arriving. Originally, he has a constraint. So Arthur can only do 2:30 for this thing. And we will have also Carl Palmskog joining to discuss because he's been a user of VOIs and all this stuff. And then, yes, hopefully 2:30, we should finish also early so there is more time for hacking. Also, I put Erbelan about GTK3 and Kokide. I think I put Erbelan, he's the one who is the work, and it was me. And then, of course, we have the Coq User in Paris meetup, which is organized mainly this time by Theo and a bit by me. And it's a very nice, it's a very nice event at 7 at the Col de Mines.
Do we have to register to go to
No, it's okay. No, because we have, okay, let's see, we have now. I took a pretty large.
I will, but I need a point.
Well, we have around 40 people, but the room is specified until 80. So we will be 40, 80. I think we are not too packed. I took a very large room. So hopefully, I think that it looks around 40 people coming, so it should be okay. Yeah.
How many are bringing a friend?
I think this doesn't tell me. It says 33 members, but let's see. I didn't put a limit. Let's see. 33 people. Okay, so 0 are bringing friends. Also, they do reviews. You saw the reviews on the group. There is 13 5-star reviews, and one other review which is like 1 or 2 stars. Yeah. So we have 4.9, but one is okay. There is all 5-star, but where is the reviews? But yeah, one is not my thing. One person said this is not my thing.
Who's paying the food?
Tesos
Tezos is paying.
the blockchain.
Not Mathieu.
No, not me.
Well, I need to talk to Theo, but maybe Mathieu, he will be reimbursed by Tesos.
Not this time.